Hi, I'm Christopher, a research software engineer with Research Software Workshops, and it's a very warm welcome to introducing version control with Git Part 6. We're now moving on to the saving a new version of a file section, which is in the workshop notes, which you can see linked to here at the bottom, and when you go to this section you should see a web page that looks something like this. Now, going back to the command line, we've now added readme.md to be tracked, and if we look at the output of git status again, so I'm typing git status and hitting return, we should see that we have this new file recognized. Now note here the line that says changes to be committed. This line indicates that Git knows that something has changed in our directory, but Git hasn't yet made a record of this change. This change is still considered to be temporary, and as such it has not yet been recorded. Committing is the way to tell Git that this change should be recorded. Every time you commit a change, you record a new version of all of the tracked files in your directory. When you save a version, it is like taking a snapshot of those files at that particular point in time. Later on in this workshop, we will see how we can ask Git to move backwards and forwards in time between different committed versions, thereby allowing us to see how things have changed. Now, to commit a change and thus record a new snapshot view of the tracked files in this directory, we use the command git commit -a. When we type this command and hit return, it will open up your text editor, remember the one that we set using that git config command. Now this text editor, it has some text already populated at the bottom which we can ignore, don't overwrite it, which is telling us that this is the commit where we've added this new file readme.md. The text provides a record of everything that has changed that is now going to be recorded. Now note at the top here we have space for you to add some text for yourself, and this is known as the commit message. This should be a human readable description of the change, so you can later understand why you wanted to save this new snapshot version view of the directory. For example, this is the very first commit we're adding, so let's write our commit message as being something like added the file readme.md so that we have an initial file to play with in Git. Okay, once you've written your commit message, save and exit from the text editor. So in my case I'm using nano, so it's, remember here, Control X to exit, yes to save, and accept the name of the file. Don't change anything here, just hit return. Okay, now we've done that, you should see output that looks similar but probably not identical to this. This output is telling us that Git knows that it's now committed a change, and the change involved one file, and that contained 11 new lines of text. Now, as I said, git status is telling us the status of things. I always type git status all the time, so if we type git status again, you now see a different output. This output is saying there is now nothing to commit. The working tree is clean. If you see this, congratulations. You've now saved your very first version of your directory to Git. The phrase working tree clean means that your working tree, and working tree is a word we use to mean this directory, that working tree is clean so that all the files in your directory are at exactly the same version as the files that are in the last saved snapshot in Git, i.e. the versions in the repository are equal and identical to the version that's currently in this directory. A clean working directory is one for which all changes have been committed, while a dirty working directory is one that contains changes that have not yet been committed, ones that have not yet been saved to Git. Now, on newer versions of Git, you may see here that the branch is called master. On older versions, you may see the branch is called master. There's a movement within Git to remove the word master and to change it with something that's less problematic, i.e. something like main. And so what we're going to do now is basically run a one-off command to change master into main. You will not need to do this if you are on newer versions of Git, or you selected this option on Windows when you were doing the installation. Now to change master into main, we have the command written down here, and this is one of the only times where I'll get you to copy and paste a command. So I'm going to copy this in and paste it, and don't worry what this command is doing. It's git branch -m master main means rename master into main. If I now type git status again, you will now see we're on branch main, and again there is now nothing to commit. Okay, we've now worked through this section, and we now have another command to add to our git cheat sheet. So before we had git init, initialize version control within the directory, git status, get the status of the versions of the files within the directory, git add a file to be tracked so that Git will be monitoring it. And this new command from this section, git commit -a. Git commit -a tells Git to save a new snapshot version of all the files, all the tracked files in this directory. The -a means all files, and that's why we have to add the -a in. It is possible to commit new versions of just individual files in a directory, but I would not recommend this at this time. It's much better when you're starting with Git to commit -a and put all of the changes into the Git all in one go. Okay, we're now down at the bottom where we have an exercise. In the exercise, we'd like you to create a new file called something.md in versioned dir, so in your directory. I would like you to add some text into this file, for example, copy and paste in the text from this web page or type anything you wish. We'd like you to use git status to see if Git has seen that you've added the file, and then use git add so that Git will track this file, and use git status again just to check that the file has actually been added. Finally, use git commit -a to commit your change and write a suitable git commit message. Once you've committed, use git status once again to see that your working tree is clean and there is nothing left to commit. Okay, you can press pause now. Do have a go on the exercise, and when you come back from pause, I'll go through the exercise myself. Okay, you've unpaused, that means you're ready to have a look at the answer, or me going through the exercise. So the first thing we need to do, I'll just Control-L to clean this screen, so that it's like we can work from the top. So first thing we're asked to do is create a new file called something.md within my version directory. So I'm already within version dir, type ls, there's my readme.md. I'm now going to create a new file called something.md, so nano something.md. Here is some text that I am adding to something.md. It is very difficult to randomly work out what to type. Okay, it's just some text that we've put into this file, Control-X to save. Yes, I'm saving it. Hit return. And now we have readme.md and something.md. Right, we now have to use git status to see what Git thinks of this. And you can see the git status shows that Git has found that there is this new untracked file called something.md. Now we would like to track this file, so the command for that is git add something.md. And now when I git status again, we can now see that this file is now added. It's a new file that Git says is ready to be committed. So to commit this new version of this directory, to save a new snapshot into the repository, we type git commit -a. This is now going to add something.md to Git. So I'm going to type in, adding in a new file called something.md to demonstrate how to use Git. And then I'm saving that, Control-X, Y, return. The file has now been added. If I do git status again, there we are, nothing to commit, working tree clean. That means the latest version of readme.md and something.md are now saved within Git. Okay, that's the end of this part of the workshop. I look forward to seeing you on the next part.